Bartholomew Town is brought to you in part by the University of Rhode Island Online, Navigant Credit Union, the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, Newport Film, and Half Street Group.
Bartholomew Town.
This is our first opportunity to speak here on the show with new housing secretary here in Rhode Island, Deb Goddard. Thanks so much for your time, Secretary. Obviously a lot in your plate right now, and obviously a lot in people's minds. We'll certainly get to some of the initiatives, inclusive of the municipal fellowship program that was announced, what was that, yesterday or 2 days ago by the McKee administration and the Department of Housing in a joint release. But first of all, your initial assessment, your first couple of months on the ground in the role, the state of Rhode Island housing is?
I'll repeat, in crisis.
That's pretty clear, I think, to everybody who is experiencing any level of interaction with housing right now. So, I mean, we see a scenario where obviously it's a supply and demand issue, but you also have things like what happened in Johnston. Joe Policina Jr., the mayor of Johnston, ostensibly, let's be honest about it, blockading an affordable housing development. At the municipal level, there are different versions of attacking this crisis. And no matter what we legislate inside the General Assembly, no matter what directives come from a federal level or come from an administrative level in terms of the McKee administration, your office, if municipalities aren't on board with addressing and assessing the housing crisis, we're not going to go anywhere. What's your message to municipalities like Johnston that get into these sorts of activities that thwart the opportunity for affordable or otherwise, non-single family homes to be built?
The message is pretty straightforward, Bill. It's that every community has to play a role. There are housing needs across every community. No community has solved the problem, and every Rhode Islander deserves a chance to live wherever they want in Rhode Island. So we will keep continuing. That's part of my job, right? Talk to the municipalities, talk to the voters, break down these barriers, and I will be a persistent advocate.
That's an interesting word. And I think that's something that the housing department, by and large, has a unique position in that it's a fairly new office. And there's been a lot of occupants of that office. You're now the fourth secretary in, a couple of years here. The advocacy role, how much on the ground work are you doing right now behind the scenes that you're able to share? It's not necessarily persuading, but getting municipalities on board, whether it's Narragansett with student housing, whether it's Johnston with what they've been up to with this, eminent domain nonsense that they've gotten involved with. How much advocacy do you personally do behind the scenes to say, hey, wait a second, we need to get everybody on the same page here. Otherwise, our state is going to trend in or continue to trend in the wrong direction in the housing crisis?
So that's a good question. I firmly believe in partnerships. And advocacy partnership and advocacy are not mutually exclusive, right? They complement each other. I've been meeting with homelessness advocates and organizations. I have been joining the governor for municipal official lunches for several weeks, where housing is highlighted and the governor's goals for housing within his 2030 plan are highlighted. And I've met with some city officials. I will meet with anyone, and I will knock on everyone's door sooner or later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's unfortunately the level of engagement it's going to take. With this announcement on February 17th, Governor McKee and the Rhode Island Department of Housing announcing grant awards to 8 municipalities totaling about $1 million through a municipal fellows program. What exactly is that?
So in February of 23, we had a meeting with the League of Cities and Towns, and I was consulting at the time, and we heard from particularly smaller cities and towns that they are not staffed as well as they need to be staffed in planning and in zoning and able to address zoning issues, able to address development proposals that are coming before them, or even update their housing plan. So we created this program that got launched. We are putting basically young up-and-coming planners into these communities. We are paying for the salaries with the hope that they can bring some new expertise, expanded expertise, additional expertise to these localities. And that also Bill, that we can grow a crop of folks that want to stay in Rhode Island as planners and work in our communities on these issues.
Right. And that's a piece that there's been an educational higher ed element to, and really, is it at Rhode Island College that the program for developing municipal and otherwise urban planners has been implemented? Is that correct? I'm pulling that out of my memory.
I honestly, I don't recall myself right now, though. We are working with Roger Williams.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Creating a peer-to-peer learning experience for, these are fairly inexperienced young folks, and we want to give them support in more ways than one. So there will be a peer-to-peer learning aspect to this program as well.
What do you say to people right now who are discouraged? People who are seeing their property taxes increase in Providence in a significant way, people who are seeing their rent be well more than 30 or even 40 or 50 or 60% of their income. I don't know. I mean, it seems like a lot of people in my generation are really down on Rhode Island. I think in some ways they're right to be, because it does feel like a generation is being pushed out of here. But what do you say to people? Should people stay? Is there optimism in the near future that, if you're not making $120,000 a year, you'll be able to live here?
First of all, it's not Rhode Island alone. Moving to any of our nearby sister states, folks are going to be presented with the same housing challenges. I think Rhode Island obviously offers, I would say stay. I would say enjoy the recreational and the beauty and the nature of Rhode Island, the close-knit aspects of Rhode Island. And I would also say, let's, again, work together rather than leave the problem. Let's work together to solve the problem. Mm-hmm. And it's not, in terms of affordability, it's not just supply, it's also income. And the governor is keen on raising incomes here. So we've always said in the housing world, it's a two-sided equation. You've got to increase stock, obviously supply and demand, but you also have to increase incomes. And as you know, that's a key aspect of the governor's platform.
No doubt. JOBS, we've heard time and time again from the governor, and that's definitely something that when you look at his 2030 plan is front and center. When you think about the moment right now, as you said, it's a national issue. How much partnership needs to take place on the federal side to alleviate some of the financial stress that people are feeling? I mean, obviously, this is why, in one of the 2 or 3 major reasons, Donald Trump was elected. Of course, if you're being honest about it, that's kind of a gimmick, because we don't see any real action being taken in the cost of eggs or anything like that coming down. It was just sort of a ploy to dupe people into getting behind his coalition. But what can the federal government do to partner with states like Rhode Island, like officials like yourself, to say, let's make our country livable again?
If I had a magic wand, Bill, I would say that this is a societal issue. It is a national issue that we need to increase funding for housing. We need to address long-term obstacles to housing, whether that be, and I think some of it can be done from the federal level, in terms of breaking down barriers. We, for instance, are working here to address zoning, local zoning issues and state permitting issues. I think likewise there could be things done at the federal level to speed things up, to move programs more efficiently. But we can't avoid the need to continue with what we're doing.
Let's shift to the crisis of the unhoused, and specifically, finally, Echo Village is opened. This is kind of like the Washington Bridge for the administration. It's just one of those unforced errors that, and that may be literal in the sense that, there's not much that can be done when you're talking about something like fire codes. I mean, we live in a state, we're coming upon the anniversary of the Station nightclub fire. The reality was that the tiny houses, the pallet shelters, Echo Village, they're over there off Route 146 over by Hopkins Field. And you just couldn't manipulate the fire code, even with the state of emergency that could have been declared a public health emergency. It still would have been dubious, to say the least. So the question becomes, all right, now it's open. That was hardly smooth sailing. To open the thing in the middle of February was, nobody's going to sit here and say, even though it was sort of a celebration and you had the extraordinary rendition band and all that down there, the reality is, come on. I mean, there's no way that that is how anybody anticipated this project would go. Having said that, looking now at it from a realistic standpoint, what can you do as housing secretary to make sure that nothing like that happens again, where you can get ahead of the game in terms of zoning, in terms of fire codes, in terms of connecting all of government, a whole of government approach to make sure any future pallet shelters or other sort of alternative spaces are able to be opened without bureaucracy slowing down the process?
So two-part answer, Bill. First is we've already started engagement with the Department of Business Regulation to see where we can get to some more yeses. Where can we look at the fire code, and not with extreme changes, but maybe there are things we can get to yes on, and DBR is willing to sit down with us and work on that. Those are tweaks. I think equally important is that the governor, in our governance report, we recommended, and the governor's accepted the recommendation to create an interagency council on housing. That's where these kinds of conversations have to take place with DBR, with other state permitting entities. How do we streamline the process? Can we move from sequential permitting processes to consecutive permitting processes? Can we make sure our stuff, our processes and our work is transparent with online data, online permitting, which in fact DBR is working on right now, as is DEP.
Mm-hmm. When you look out right now at the state of Rhode Island, do you get a sense that by and large, people realize how serious the crisis that we face is? Or is this something that is only acute to those who are impacted because, hey, they're either unhoused or they're a renter that's trying to become a first-time home buyer, whatever it is? Do you think that this is a type of macro issue that is front and center the way that it ought to be?
I think with a large part of the population, it is. Our work putting the state plan together and outreach and survey results indicate that folks really are aware there's a problem. Now, how that translates to what they're willing to do in their backyard, obviously that's the kind of work we have to do to make sure we convert that concern into acceptance and action.
When you look at, there was I thought it was a really amazing thing that took place now it's been about a month or maybe more, where a couple of Providence City councilors opened up Providence City Hall in the council chambers to have a pop-up homeless shelter on a night where it was freezing and there was insufficient warming centers in the state. This was sort of to me, it certainly was political in that it was a protest. It also had practical implications, but it moved the needle. The mayor's office in Providence stepped in and were able to partner with those counselors and the organizations they had wrapped together to move that pop-up shelter to the Da Vinci Center and make it more official. So what was your reaction when that took place? Did you see that as an effective strategy, even though, hey, it may not be within the confines of officialdom, it was moving the ball forward in a creative way? Or was that something that you looked at and said, I'm not sure that's the direction we should be going?
It was a little bit more the latter. I do think we need a whole community response, and Providence has done it's lifted more than their fair share, including the siting of Echo Village. They just put out an RFP recently that closed this week or last week for additional shelter space. So I don't really take joy in using shelter and using those sorts of things as a way to bring attention to the issue. I think there could be more constructive ways. But that said, I just want to say in general, the city council and the mayor have been very supportive of addressing homelessness in Providence, and I'm very, very appreciative of it.
Last area here, short-term rentals. It's improved. It's definitely improved. I know that in 2020, Newport, I did a story that ended up having national outreach on PBS where we looked at unregistered short-term rentals in the city of Newport. Our investigation found nearly 800 of them. We spoke with a lot of community members who said, look, I can't afford to live here anymore. And those who do live in Newport found themselves to be living in what became known as dark spots, areas that used to be vibrant, filled with families or anybody who would live in residential areas. And all of a sudden, in the middle of winter, those were now basically vacant micro hotels. That's been course corrected a little bit. Municipalities are doing a good job. There's statewide regulatory, there's a statewide regulatory environment that has improved. At the same time, I mean, you still have people who are they operate short-term rentals with impunity. Should there be a statewide regulatory body that oversees short-term rentals and cracks down with significant enforcement capabilities and punitive capabilities for people who operate unregistered illegal short-term rentals in places, whether it's Newport, Warwick, Westerly, Narragansett, Providence? This is a major issue still, and it seems like most of what's taken place from an oversight standpoint has been perfunctory and guidance-oriented. Should that change?
I testified in front of the Short-Term Rental Commission a week or two ago, and the staffs in some of the coastal communities are really stunning. And there was an acknowledgement that by all, including folks representing the Airbnb or the short-term rental industry, that compliance is lacking in some spots. So I think I want to work with that commission to support what they come up with in terms of their recommendation, but they clearly are aware that enforcement is problematic. If you don't know what you don't know, how do you enforce it, right? So, yeah, something probably needs to be done, and I await the recommendations of the commission, and we'll work with them.
You having fun in this role? Are you happy to be in this job? Is it? I mean, I'm sure you're going to give the answer that, unless you're resigning today, you're probably going to say you are. But do you sense that this is like an exciting moment in your career, that you're going to be able to leave a legacy in the state of Rhode Island as somebody who really shaped where we're heading for the next 5, 10, 15 years? Do you think that opportunity is in front of you?
I really hate words like legacy, Bill, but that's my job, right? I would not have if I didn't think that my experience and my knowledge could help the state and could help this department move things forward. Mm-hmm. I think we can do that. Certainly not alone, Bill. Partners across sister agencies, the staff here, the governor. But I have a smile on my face most of the time. I'm energized by the number of folks that want to work with us, that want to partner with us, that want the department to succeed. And I am confident that we're going to make progress.
Deborah Goddard, new housing secretary here in Rhode Island. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for hopping on with us, and good luck to you as you take on, honestly, it's one of the crises of our times, and it's a crazy moment. It's a really, really crazy moment when people in my generation are so unsure about what their prospects are. I know a lot of people who are thinking about leaving the United States as a result of this. Never mind Rhode Island. You take a look. I mean, I find myself browsing all the time different countries around the world, and you go, wait a second, I can live a way higher quality of life for way less in South America, in Europe, Southeast Asia. What am I doing here freezing in February, trying to buy a home that used to be $300,000 for $800,000? That's market pressure. But we've got an amazing thing happening here in Rhode Island. We have so much opportunity. We need to save it. It's totally worth it. And I appreciate your efforts as we try to get this thing stabilized, because to me, I don't think that the general sentiment of millennials and Gen Z right now is being felt across government, because there's going to be a diaspora a necessary diaspora within the next 10 years. And you think Hasbro leaving because they don't find that they have the talent to operate is a major story. That will continue as entrepreneurs and others get out of here because they can't find somewhere to go. So I'm glad you're on it, because I love Rhode Island and so many people do, and we want to be here.
Bill, can I say one more thing?
Please.
I would ask that you and your millennials rally, go out to the planning board meetings, go out to the permitting meetings, show up, speak up for yourselves. We need your support too. We need your partnership.
You've got it. We'll be there. And anybody out there that heard that, make your plans, get out there. Thanks, Secretary. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill.
Hey, thanks for stopping by Bartholomew Town. For more content, follow me on Instagram @BillBartholomew.